Most students, even after years of studying English, fail to speak English fluently. You are not alone because it's a global problem. One of my students, Adarsh from India, described this combination of failure and stress as English trauma. He said that he hated English. He felt that learning English was boring, stressful, and speaking English was even worse. In fact, the thought of speaking in a native speaker immediately made him feel extremely nervous and shy. He felt that he had developed a psychological problem with English and had named it English trauma. A trauma is a deep wound or injury. How said? It thought to my mind that so many people now think of English as a kind of injury or mental disease. Throughout my teaching career, I've met many students who had similar feelings about English. I discovered that Adarsh was not alone. Rather, English trauma is a global epidemic. Though most of people feel they must learn to speak English, very few seem to enjoy it. Most who learn to language and while learning they struggle with same feeling of nervousness, frustration that others had. As I encountered this problem more and more, I began to look at the root causes. I realized that before I found a solution, I needed to understand the problem, just as a doctor must find the diagnosis with a disease before treating it. Think about it. What is the cause of all this misery and failure? Why do so many people fail to speak English effortlessly despite years of study? What is wrong with the English education? The first and the most obvious problem I found with the school was the way how which they teach English. Most students in school, everywhere in the school, use grammar translation method, as the same implies the focus of method of grammar analysis and the memorization of translated vocabulary. This method breaks English into an endless series of English formulas and to memorize. Of course, each grammar formula has exception and these must be memorized too. School like the grammar translation method because it appears to be serious, academic and complex. The grammar translation method fits the way how school teaches more subjects with textbooks, lectures, notes, memorization and tests. The only problem, as you know, is it doesn't work. In real conversation, that simply have no time to think about the grammar formulas and their exceptions. The failure rate of this method, therefore, is absolutely horrible. Despite of failures of most students to speak English fluently, schools continue to use this method. This is an epic failure of our education system. Recently, because students find the grammar translation method so boring that school have added communication activities to their curriculum. Occasionally, the teacher puts the student into pairs and groups and the student then read or repeat dialogues from a textbook. Sometimes, they might answer a few questions from a worksheet. Of course, these activities are unnatural, nothing like real English conversation. The failure rate of communication activities is just as bad as grammar translation. Obviously, the English teaching method used in the school is not working at all. That was easy to see. I knew it, and the students knew it as well. Many teachers know it too, though failure will admit it. However, I continue to investigate the problem with schools. I found even the deeper problem in the education system. These problems are less obvious, but in many ways far more damaging to the schools, along with their students. I call these problems the hidden curriculum, because they are the hidden lesson taught by the school. The hidden curriculum, most schools everywhere in the world share a similar hidden curriculum. One element of the curriculum is students' passivity. In schools, students are trained to be passive, not to be active. They sit in chairs and rows. When they are young, they are told to be quiet and obey the teacher. As the teacher lectures, the student take notes. Later, they are told to memorize the notes and preparation for a test. The message is clear. Learning is a passive activity. You listen to the teacher, you take notes, you memorize the notes. The problem is that the speaking English is not a passive activity. You must connect with someone. You must connect with the people. You must constantly ask and answer questions. You must communicate ideas, emotions, and descriptions. You must be ready for the expected questions. You must be spontaneous. You must actively interact. English is not something you passively study. It is something you do. Relate to the problem of passivity in the issue of energy. Sitting for a long time in low energy activity, the longer you sit, the more energy drops. And as your energy drops, so does your concentration. That's worst. We know that some learners need physical movement in order to learn effectively. These people are called kinesthetic learners. The truth is, we all are kinesthetic learners to some degree, because we all benefit from physical movement. Schools stick us with chair and drains our energy. Eventually, an inactive body leads to an inactive mind. I'm repeating, an inactive body leads to an inactive mind. In one right answer mentality, one of the greatest flaws in the school education is the idea of one right answer. One right answer is a powerful part of the hidden curriculum. It is a result of using textbook and test. In school, you are frequently taught that there is just one and only one correct answer of a question or a problem. For example, you may be asked for choose to correct verb tenses from a test. You may be taught proper English greetings. The hidden message is that the teacher's way is always right in real life. But in real English, that is not the way. For example, sometimes I will tell you a story using the present tense, even though the events happened in the past. This is a technique commonly used by native speakers. However, when English learners hear these stories, many of them get confused and upset. They are convinced that the past tense is the right answer and that is only a right and correct way to tell the story. Some get quite upset and even argue with me about it. These students are so convinced that there is just one right answer that they will argue with the native speakers also. These students have been trained to believe that there is just one correct answer and there is just one correct way to say things in English. The truth is that there are always many ways to say some things. We can change the verb tenses in order to change the feeling of the story. We can use different vocabularies and different phrases. And we can break grammar rules also. One right answer thinking limits and confuses English learners. Effective communication requires flexibility, while the one right answer mentality trains students to be rigid or unimaginative. Connected to this problem is another dangerous part of hidden curriculum: fear of mistake. This is one of the most negative and an irritated message taught in the school. How is the fear of mistake taught? Through tests and corrections. In nearly every school all over the world, teachers regularly give quizzes and tests. The teacher asks questions and the student must provide the one right answer. Of course, one right answer is always the teacher's answer. What happens if a student provides a different answer? They are punished with a lower score. Students are smart. They quickly understand that in the school, mistakes are bad and must be avoided. They also understand that truth is also unimportant and the best way to succeed is to simply give the answer that the teacher wants. Even worse is when a student already feeling nervous tries to speak English with the whole class listening. They are just learning, so of course they will make mistakes. When the teacher corrects these mistakes, the students are embarrassed and becomes even more nervous. Eventually, most students try to avoid speaking English because the situation is so painful. By punishing and correcting mistakes, school punished risk taking. Little by little, they train students to avoid risk and avoid doing anything they can't do perfectly. Yet, there's no perfection with this English speaking. Even native speakers make mistakes. We make grammar mistakes. We mispronounce words also. We forget vocabulary words. These doesn't matter at all because we are focused on communicating, not on the tests and grades, of course. The fear of mistakes goes far beyond English class. After years of school, most people learn to avoid risk in most part of their life. School trains them to be passive, rigid, timid, and obedient. This is not only hurts your English speaking, it also harms your character, career, and limits your success in all areas of your life. Fortune favors are old. Those who are active, flexible, passionate are ones who achieve the greatest success in life. The passive and obedient rarely live their dreams. You will make many mistakes as you improve your English speaking. There is no need to be upset on this. The truth is, most native speakers don't care. They don't care if you make grammatical mistakes. They just want to communicate with you. They want to share thoughts, ideas, and the feelings. They want to communicate with you as a human being, not as an English student. To communicate English effectively, you must forget the idea of perfection and learn to be flexible. The dirty secret of English teaching, if the student hidden curriculum is so bad, why the student and teacher continue to follow it? The truth about our education system is that the curriculum exceeds the benefits of the school, not the students. Teachers use these methods because they are easier for the teacher, but because they are good for students. It is being said by the teacher. The hidden curriculum creates the passive students. It creates obedient students. Passive and obedient students are easier to control and making life easier for the teacher and the school administrators. Textbook, for example, make the teacher's job much easier. By using a textbook, the teacher doesn't have to plan new lessons for every class. Planning lessons is hard work, and a textbook makes it much easier. The teacher can simply follow the textbook with a minimum effort. Many teachers are little more than the textbook readers. Every day they read the textbook to the students and celebrate following the lesson. In my opinion, they are barely to be called teachers at all. Perhaps we should call them textbook readers instead. Another benefit of textbook for the schools is that they standardize learning. By using a textbook, the school ensures that every English class is learning exactly the same thing. School officials like this because it makes the testing and ranking students easier. Students are like factories in which we have to invest. The bosses want everyone to be the same. The same is true for the test and grades. These provide a little more than to no benefit for English learners. In fact, we all have discussed text and grammars and increases stress, and it creates the fears of making mistakes. Tests and grades are primary cause of English trauma. On the other hand, text and grades are powerful tool of control for teachers. When students fear bad grades, they obey the teacher more. They learn that the teacher is always right, because if they don't agree with the teacher, then they are punished with lower scores. Grades are a means of ranking students. Most teachers and administrators are focused on ranking students rather than helping all succeed it. In many schools, the official policy is that certain percentage of the school in every class must get poor grades. A certain percentage must get minimum level of grades, and only a small percentage can be given excellent grades. In other words, the system is designed to create the failure for a large number of students. While working at the university in Thailand, I was told directly to my bosses that too many of my students had high scores. My boss insisted that I fail more students in my class. I was shocked and angry. I quit the job rather than failed dedicated students. Sadly, this mentality of design failures is present in most of schools everywhere in the world. Schools benefit from the ranking and controlling students. The grammar translation method is also beneficial for the teacher, but not only for students. But teaching grammar rules, the teacher can simply lecture from textbook because linguistic is complicated subject. The teacher appears knowledgeable and thus establishes a position of superiority over the students. Even if the teacher is non-native speaker with the terrible English ability, he or she pretends to be expert by teaching complex grammar from a book. The shocking truth is that many non-native English teachers, in fact, speak English very poorly. By focusing on grammar, they disgust their inability to speak well. What about communication activities? Surely they are designed to help students. Actually, they are not. These activities are designed and discussed previously are unnatural. They are nothing like real conversation and thus do not prepare students to have real conversation. However, communication activities are great for teachers. The teacher puts that student into pairs and groups and asks them to follow the textbook activity. Often, the students simply read the written dialogue from a book or to answer the pre-written questions from the book. The advantage for the teacher is that once such an activity has been started, the teacher can rest and do nothing while the students go through the textbook activity. The teacher relaxes. This is a secret among English teachers that communication activities are a great way to waste time and avoid work. One particularly horrible version of communication activity is that it uses movies. Used correctly, movies can be a powerful English learning tool. Most teachers, however, simply use movies as a way to waste time. They put in a movie, turns off the light and push play. For the remainder of the class, the teacher happily does nothing. The students are usually happy too. Because watching a movie is far more interesting than grammar. Even if they can't understand most of the film, passive low energy benefits the teacher. Finally, let's look at the low energy situation in the most schools. From childhood, students are forced to sit for hours of motionless chairs. They are told to be quiet and obedient. By adulthood, most people are fully trained. They accept passive lectures and low energy as a normal part of learning. Why would schools and teachers want low energy? Again, because low energy students are easier to manage. Yes, low energy students are easier to manage. A teacher must work much harder with a curious, energetic students. Sadly, most teachers prefer the easy way. It's much easier for them to lecture quietly to passive students. The truth is that many teachers are tired and stressed because of this, constantly look for ways to make their own job easier. Their first concern is not the students. They are not obsessed with on getting better results for the learners. Rather, they just want to get through their work day as easily as possible. There are many reasons for this situation, but the end of the result for the students are boredom, frustration, and the poor result. This is the ugly truth of the education. This is the reason you cannot speak English well, despite years of study. This is the reason you find English to be stressful, difficult, and boring. This is the cause of English trauma. This is the source of the problem. Happily, there is a solution also. The internet has made independent learning easy for all. No matter where you live or what you do, it is possible to master spoken English without schools. All you need is an internet connection. In the next audiobook, I will introduce the solution to English trauma. You will learn how to heal and how to finally get results that you want to speak English fastly.